Hey guys, in today's video I have an interesting story for you guys about a man named H.H. Holmes. And I think he's just so interesting because he would seem to be like a fictional murder mystery character, but no, he's actually a real man who was in the 1800s. And of course, it is a bit of an older story. Some things will be a little distorted from throughout time because people have lost a bit of the story, probably added a little bit to the story. But this just seems to be the official story that we have now for him. So let's get straight into the story. I'm looking over here at my notes in case you guys are wondering. So H.H. Holmes, born Herman Webster Mudgett, was a con artist and bigamist who was one of America's first serial killers. He was sometimes referred to as the Beast of Chicago. Holmes is believed to have killed somewhere between 20 and 200 people. He killed many of his victims in a specially constructed home, which was later nicknamed the Murder Castle. Apprehended in 1894, he was hanged for his crime 2 years later. So the Murder Castle seems to be coming back quite a bit in this story because a lot of people just seem very fascinated with his murder castle, and that is where he did a lot of his murders. So Holmes was born on May 16, 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. Born into an affluent family, Holmes enjoyed a privileged childhood and was said to be unusually intelligent at an early age. So we're already seeing a guy who gives a bit of these genius tendencies, and that doesn't seem to be that good for him because he's probably going to be too smart to outsmarting some people throughout his murders, which he does. And still there are haunting signs of what was to come. He expressed an interest in medicine, which reportedly led him to practice surgery on animals. So it's usually a pretty big indicator that somebody's not exactly right if they're like trying to practice experience by animals or like killing animals and stuff like that. It seems like a lot of serial killers have that tendency. I'm not saying that if somebody's doing that they're going to grow up to be a killer. I'm just saying that a lot of serial killers seem to do that at an early age. But even then, they're not exactly sure that's even true, or there's somebody might have added that to the story over time. But that's all what they have for now. And Holmes' life of crime began with various frauds and scams. A medical student at the University of Michigan, he stole corpses and used them to make false insurance claims. And Holmes may have used the bodies for experiments as well. So he's already getting a lot of more money from these insurance fraud that he's pulling off. He's taking these bodies. He's pretending that he knew them. He's taking their life insurance, which is a lot of money. And then he's getting countless life insurance for all these bodies that he's taking. Alright, so Holmes arrives in Chicago in August 1886, which is when he begins using the name H.H. Holmes, and he does this so that he can fake his name multiple times and make up for the H.H. to stand for anything he really wants to. It could be Harry, could be Henry, and that way he can just change his name really easily. And he purchased an empty lot from a drugstore where construction began in 1887 for a two-story mixed-use building with apartments on the second floor and retail spaces, including a new drugstore on the first floor. And then eventually he decides to build a third floor, telling investors and suppliers he intended to use it as a hotel. So then he made a lot of odd rooms in this hotel. There were soundproof rooms and mazes of hallways, some of which seemed to go nowhere. Many of the rooms were outfitted with chutes that would drop straight down to the basement, where Holmes had acid vats, quicklime, and crematorium to dispose of his victims' bodies. We also had elaborate torture rooms, which contained like hinged walls and secret passageways, airtight rooms that were connected to pipelines filled with gas, which Holmes used as the gas chamber. So he just had a lot of weird stuff. He had surgical tables, arrays of medical tools to dissect them before selling their organs and bones to the black market and to medical institutions. So he has this pretty planned out. Like, he builds it specifically to murder people, to experiment on people. It's kind of scary. But let's go ahead and get into some of his murders. One of Holmes' early murder victims was his mistress, Julia Smythe. She was the wife of Ned Connor, who had moved into Holmes' building and began working at his pharmacy's jewelry counter. After Connor found out about Smythe's affair with Holmes, he quit his job and moved away, leaving Smythe and her daughter, Pearl, behind. And then Smythe gained custody of Pearl and remained at the hotel, continuing her relationship with Holmes. So she didn't even hear her husband left. She's in love with Holmes now. So Julia and Pearl disappeared on Christmas Eve of 1891, and Holmes later claimed she had died during an abortion. Though what truly happened to the two of them was never confirmed. Yes, her and her daughter died, so it's just very sad. Pearl is young; she's only like 6 years old or so at the time. Another likely Holmes paramour, Emmeline Segran, began working in the building in May 1892 and disappeared that December. another woman who vanished, and an Van Tass was also have been believed to be among Holmes' victims. So it's like he's killing a lot of women that he works with, that he's hiring, they're like easy to get access to. But in early 1893, a one-time actress named Minnie Williams who's in Chicago. Holmes claims to have met her in an employment office, though there were rumors he met her in Boston years earlier. He offered a job to her at the hotel as personal stenographer, and she accepted. And then Holmes persuaded Williams to transfer the deeds to a property in Fort Worth, Texas, to a man named Alexander Bold, an alias of Holmes. So it's actually just Holmes pretending like to take her property, to give her property to another man, but it's actually himself. And he was able to convince her to do this because he's just a very manipulative man, and he just wants her property. She has a lot of property in Texas, so he's really planning this one out. And in April 1893, Williams transferred the deed with Holmes serving as a notary. Basically, he pretended to be there to notarize her own signature, but okay. The next month, Holmes and Williams presented themselves as man and wife, rented an apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park, and Minnie's sister Annie came out to visit. In July, she wrote to her aunt that she planned to accompany Brother Harry to Europe, but neither Mary nor Annie were seen alive after July 5th, 1893. So we can see that he killed both of them. And it's pretty sad though. Like, I think it said that he killed Annie because like he had some ownership in the property that both of them had, and he felt like he decided to kill her too to make sure that he could get all the property to himself. So to him, that seemed to make a lot of sense that he had to get her out the way. Yeah, now both of these women are dead because of his insane desire for money. So Holmes had a very entrepreneurial spirit, and based on his former medical education and his connections, he was able to sell skeletons to medical labs and schools. You know, these schools probably thought it was a little sketchy that he was getting these skeletons, or was he getting them from? But he sold them for cheaper, and these schools and medical institutions really needed these skeletons. So he just kind of decided to turn a blind eye and just take them anyway, even though it was a bit sketchy. But eventually, with insurance companies pressing to prosecute Holmes for arson, Holmes left Chicago in July 1894. He reappeared in Fort Worth, where he had inherited property from the Williams sisters, and then there he sought to construct another castle, basically Murder Castle 2.0, along the lines of his Chicago operation, once again swindling a number of suppliers. So he really is just going to set up a new murder castle. He's just addicted to killing at this point. In July 1894, Holmes was arrested and briefly jailed for the first time. Of all the robberies he's done, it's not because he killed anybody or anything like that. He is arrested on the charge of selling mortgage goods in St. Louis, Missouri. But he was promptly bailed out, but while in jail, he struck up a conversation with a convicted outlaw named Marion Hitchcock. Marion Hedgepeth was serving a 25-year sentence, and Holmes told her a plan about swindling an insurance company out of $10,000, which is equivalent to $296,000 today. And by taking out a policy, he was going to do this by taking out a policy on himself and then faking his own death. So Holmes promised Hedgepeth a $500 commission in exchange for the name of a lawyer who could be trusted. Holmes was directed to a young St. Louis attorney named Jephthah Howe. Howe was in a practice with his older brother Alphonso Howe, who had no involvement with Holmes or Benjamin or their fraudulent practices. Jephthah Howe, however, found Holmes' scheme brilliant. Nevertheless, Holmes' plan to fake his own death failed when the insurance company became suspicious and refused to pay. Holmes did not press the claim. Instead, he concocted a similar plan with his good friend Benjamin. So, Benjamin agreed to fake his own death so that his wife could collect a $10,000 life insurance policy, which he was to split with Holmes and Jephthah Howe. So his friend Benjamin is just going to go along with this whole plan of faking his own death just so his family can get some money. So, okay. The scheme, which was to take place in Philadelphia, called for Benjamin to set himself up as an inventor under the name B.F. Perry, and then be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion. He was going to have to be disfigured because they're going to look for somebody who looked like him. Like, they're going to look for a body that looked like Benjamin, like by his same height, his same measurements, and they pretend this was Benjamin because it's just faking his death, but they needed a body. So Holmes was to find an appropriate cadaver to play the role of Benjamin. Instead, Holmes couldn't find somebody. It was a little hard because Benjamin was a big guy, and he got tired of looking. So, of course, Holmes, the brilliant murderer that he is, he decided to kill Benjamin by knocking him unconscious with chloroform and setting his body on fire with the use of benzene. So yeah, the body was disfigured and they couldn't tell who it was, but it really was Benjamin. So Holmes is not the kind of guy you want to mess with because he's crazy and he will kill anybody. So in his confession, Holmes implied Benjamin was still alive after he used the chloroform on him prior to being set on fire. However, forensic evidence presented at Holmes' later trial showed chloroform had been administered after Benjamin's death, a fact that the insurance company was unaware of. Presumably to fix suicide to exonerate Holmes, should be charged with murder. Holmes collected the insurance payout on the basis of the genuine Benjamin corpse. Of course, he got the payout because it really was Benjamin. So Holmes then went on to manipulate Benjamin's unsuspecting wife into allowing 3 of her 5 children, Alice, Nellie, and Howard, to be in his custody. Okay, this is where it gets kind of confusing. So Benjamin, he pretty much it's easily able to convince Benjamin's wife to go along with his plan so that they can lose the trail of police or any people who are suspicious about the recent murder of her husband. So, but she thinks that she's gonna go meet up with Benjamin in another state, and that he's still alive because that was pretty much the plan. She doesn't know that Holmes actually killed her husband. They even came in to identify the body, which was a big 6-foot figure, and they thought it wasn't him, but it really was him. So it's really quite sad. Anyway, the eldest daughter and the baby remained with Miss Pietzel. Holmes and the 3 Pietzel children traveled throughout the northern United States and into Canada. Simultaneously, he escorted Miss Pietzel along a parallel route, all the way using various aliases and lying to Miss Pietzel concerning her husband's death, claiming Pietzel was hiding in London, as well as lying to her about the true whereabouts of her 3 missing children. In Detroit, just prior to entering Canada, they were only separated by a few blocks. And an even more audacious move, Holmes was staying in another location with his wife, who was unaware of the whole affair. Holmes would later confess to murdering Alice and Nellie by forcing them into a large trunk and locking them inside. And if we don't remember who those are, Alice and Nellie are the 2 unfortunate Pietzel children. They're just the 2 young daughters, and they were just innocent in the whole matter. And he drilled a hole in the lid of the trunk and put one end of a hose through the hole, attaching the other end to a gas line, and he just pretty much gassed the girls to death in the chamber. And then Holmes buried their bodies in the cellar of his rental house. And they were naked at the time, so it's just very weird. He's a very weird person. So this home and address, and he locked them away in his rental house. So I'm not gonna see all the address and everything, but Frank Gayer, a Philadelphia police detective assigned to investigate Holmes to find the 3 missing children, found the decomposed bodies of the 2 Pietzel girls in the cellar of the Toronto home. And Detective Gayer wrote, "The deeper we dug, the more horrible the odor became. And when we reached the depth of 3 feet, we discovered what appeared to be the bone of the forearm of a human being." Gayer then went to Indianapolis, where Holmes had rented a cottage. Holmes was reported to have visited a local pharmacy to purchase the drugs, which he used to kill young Howard Pietzel, and a repair shop to sharpen the knives he used to chop up the body before he burned it. If you guys forgot who Howard was, that is the young son of Benjamin, so he killed the boy too. The boy's teeth and bits of the bone were discovered in the home's chimney, so he was just slicing people up, killing them. He seemed like he just had no soul. That's just the story is just so, it's just so traumatizing, horrifying pretty much. So Holmes' murder spree finally ended when he was arrested in Boston on November 17th, 1894, after being tracked there from Philadelphia by the Pinkertons. He was held on an astounding warrant for horse theft in Texas. Wow. As the authorities had become more suspicious at this point, and Holmes appeared poised to flee the country in the company of his unsuspecting 3rd wife. Following the discovery of Alice and Nellie's bodies in July 1895, Chicago police reporters began investigating Holmes' building in Inglewood, now locally referred to as the Castle. Though many sensational claims were made, no evidence was found which would have convicted Holmes in Chicago. And according to Seltzer's, stories of torture equipment found in the buildings are 20th century fiction. In October 1895, Holmes went on trial for the murder of Benjamin Pietzel and was found guilty and sentenced to death. By then, it was evident Holmes had also murdered the 3 missing Pietzel's children. That's just so sad that he just murdered. It's just really sad that the wife just had no idea that her children had been murdered already, and their siblings too. And following his conviction, Holmes confessed his 27 murders in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Toronto, though some persons he confessed to murdering were still alive. So he's not confessing to people that weren't even killed. And this was deemed to be a little crazy, but then we find out that Holmes was paid $7,500, worth $230,000 today, by the Hearts newspapers in exchange for his confession, which was quickly found to be mostly nonsense. But of course he would do this because he's been driven by money for a long time, always doing things to make more money. But Holmes gave various contradictory accounts of his life, initially claiming innocence and later that he was possessed by Satan. His propensity for lying has made it difficult for researchers to ascertain the truth of the basis of his statements. But on May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at the Moyamensing prison, also known as the Philadelphia County Prison, for the murder of Benjamin. Until the moment of his death, Holmes remained calm and amiable, showing very few signs of fear, anxiety, or depression. Despite this, he asked for his coffin to be contained in cement and buried 10 feet deep because he was concerned grave robbers would steal his body and use it for dissection. How ironic. He doesn't want for people to do the same thing that he did to countless people, buried them out. He took their dead bodies and dissected it, and he fears that. So all the things he could fear, he really just fears being dug out and just having the people perform the same thing he did to other people. But yeah, I think that's going to be the story. All I'm going to say for the story for now is a long story. But H.H. Holmes is a very cruel person, but the story is kind of interesting about the murder castle and just everything that he does in his lifetime. And he just seems like he'd just be in a movie, just a character created to establish fear. But no, this is just his personality, his behavior. I wish he had been caught in sooner, because the fact he probably did kill way more than 20 people. They say 200. I bet he probably did kill like 200 people because he had a whole murder castle. And his drive for murder really just drove him to keep doing more and more, try to create a second murder castle and do all that stuff. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I will be posting hopefully more true crime stories and just more things in general. Like, you can watch this as like just watch me talk, or you can listen to this while you're doing whatever you want to do, like treat it kind of like a podcast, whatever you want to do. And thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.